Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. A loud moan echoed throughout the home of one Hinata Hyuga and her beloved Naruto Uzumaki. It was currently the dead of night and she was writhing on her bed with the blankets pulled on the ground at the foot of the bed. More. More. She shouted as her blue hair flailed around behind her with each twist and shake she made on the bed. Between her spread legs was Naruto Uzumaki, his head nestled in her heavenly valley as his tongue invaded her sacred spot. With each movement of his tongue, she felt a pleasurable chill shoot throughout her body and she couldn't help but writhe more and more as she felt herself coming that much closer to her release. That's why, when her lover pulled away, she moaned piteously and leaned up on her elbows to look him in the eyes disappointedly. "Why'd you stop? I was so close." Smirking at her, Naruto leaned in close and captured her lips in a heated, passionate kiss as he leaned into her, pushing her body back down on the bed until he was lying on top of her. When she felt his erect member pressing against her dripping honey pot, she understood what he wanted and began to blush deeply. Oh, I'm nervous Narukoi. It's my first time. Oh, I know sweetheart, it's mine as well. You have no idea how much I've been looking forward to this moment. Naruto admitted to her as he began to push his erect inside of her. As he began to stretch her out, she began to hear a rather annoying sound. Despite this, she tried to push it out of her mind so she could enjoy the feeling of having her boyfriend inside of her after waiting all her life for this moment, but the noise just continued to persist. In fact, it was only growing louder and getting on her nerves to the point she just couldn't take it anymore. Do you hear that, Naru-kun?" she asked, only to receive a blank look before he opened his mouth. Beep, 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 was all she could hear coming from her beloved's mouth. It was at this point that she finally realized what the noise was and she groaned as she fell back into the pillow and closed her eyes. As Hinata opened her eyes, she reached over, grabbed her alarm clock, ripped it from where it sat, and threw it as hard as she could through the wall. When she heard a scream and the sound of dishes breaking, she meeped sheepishly before pulling her covers over herself in embarrassment. Damn it, I was so close. Why did it have to be a dream? It didn't take long for Hinata to realize that her sheets and pajamas were soaked through. With a groan, she threw her covers off and got off of her bed. Not again. This is the 7th time since I got back from that mission. What the hell is going on with me? Sighing to herself, Hinata began to strip her bed and began to let her mind wander back to the mission she had taken exactly 1 week ago. It had started off simple enough, sure, but things had gone downhill after they found what they were looking for. Flashback. The 4th Shinobi War was over and things were pretty peaceful throughout the nations. Sure, there was the occasional missing nin that needed to be dealt with and there were always bandits that liked to prey on the weak, but they were easily dealt with. Hinata was having a good time though. Finally she was going out with the man of her dreams, Naruto Uzumaki, hero of Konoha and of the 4th Shinobi War. They had been going out for a little over a month now and things couldn't be better for her. Though right now, she would have to admit that she wasn't exactly fond of the place she and her team were traipsing through. They had tracked a dangerous missing nin to his underground laboratory and it wasn't very well lit, nor was it what she'd call sanitary, either. She felt dirty just being here. At the moment, the group had split up in search of their target. He had already proven himself to be a despicable man as he had wiped out an entire village with one of his concoctions. This man was an expert in poisons and various other chemicals and mixtures, and so they were here to bring him down no matter the cost. With Byakugan active, she had managed to find the man busy at work in what appeared to be a laboratory. Informing her team of this and of both hers and the man's location, she snuck up on the enemy's location and prepared to confront him. Alright Hinata, you can do this. Just be careful not to let him hit you with anything. Slipping into the room, Hinata did her best to approach the man as stealthily as possible. She withdrew a kunai and prepared to end him with one swift stroke, only for the man to turn around as soon as she was within striking distance and thrust a needle towards her arm. Quickly flipping backwards away from it, Hinata glared at the missing nin and prepared for combat. Jiro Kawaguchi, you are to be exterminated for wiping out 3 towns with your toxins. Prepare to die, Hinata proclaimed, feeling full of confidence in not only her abilities, but in her ability to win against this man. The ensuing battle wasn't really much of one. The missing nin relied mostly on his poisons, it would seem, rather than any actual skills, and so long as his opponent could avoid his attacks, like Hinata was doing with her agility and flexibility, they were relatively safe from harm. The only ones that had to worry about this person in the long run were civilians, and they were his favorite people to prey on after all, they were easy to experiment on in the long run. Sadly, after delivering a finishing blow to the man's sternum and sending him flying, he managed to jab one of his needles into her arm and push down on the plunger. Wincing from the sudden sting of the needle, she pulled it out and began to worry. Oh no, what did he just inject me with? Quickly rushing over to her defeated opponent, Hinata began to try and get her answers, only to find out that her last blow had killed him. Feeling tears brimming at her eyes, Hinata looked to the door when her teammates arrived and she couldn't help but begin to cry as she rubbed at her arm. End flashback. So far, nothing has happened. I've just been having a lot of wet dreams and soaking my sheets every night. I haven't gotten sick or anything. Was it just a dud? Hinata thought to herself as she proceeded to get dressed in something light for the day. After all, whenever she tried to dress in her usual getup these days, she always felt way too hot, almost like she was burning up with a fever. So she had been sticking with a baggy t-shirt and knee-length shorts. Hey, she didn't want to wear anything too revealing, she was still a modest young woman after all. Leaving her room, Hinata bowed apologetically to the maid that was trying to clean up the mess she had made after having to avoid the sudden projectile that Hinata had thrown through her wall. I am terribly sorry, Natsu-san. I didn't mean to startle you like that. Can you forgive me? Shakily nodding her head, Natsu smiled hesitantly before staring at the alarm clock embedded in the wall near her head. If I may ask, Hinata-sama, receiving a nod, Natsu continued with her question, just what did the alarm clock do to upset you so much? Blushing at this question, Hinata began poking her fingers together and gave Natsu a sheepish smile. I was having a really good dream and my alarm clock kind of, ruined it. That's all, Natsu-san. I'll be going now, Hinata said quickly before turning on her heel and rushing off. As she left, Natsu smirked to herself and began to giggle a bit. I see. It would seem Hinata's been having some naughty dreams. I wonder, could she be thinking of a certain special somebody in these dreams? Giggling a bit more, the ninja maid resumed cleaning the broken dishes up as she began to hum a light tune to herself. A short while later, as Hinata wandered the village of Konoha in search of her boyfriend of 1 month, Naruto Uzumaki, she couldn't help but notice the looks that the people were giving her. The men especially were giving her some very strange looks that she couldn't quite identify. It was almost as if they were hungry or something. Nervously tugging at her shirt, Hinata quickened her pace as she made her way towards her boyfriend's apartment, hoping dearly that he was at home. Upon reaching her boyfriend's apartment, she knocked on the door and waited patiently for her beloved to open the door. As she waited, she couldn't help but notice out of the corner of her eye that somebody was watching her from around the corner of the building. It was worrying her and she really hoped her boyfriend was home because she didn't want to deal with some creep coming after her if he wasn't here. After a moment, the door opened and she smiled as she saw her honey's bright smile. Naru-kun, she said as she wrapped her arms tight around him. It's so good to see you. Today's been so weird, Hinata exclaimed in a bit of a panic. Naruto, noticing the man watching them, pulled his lovely girlfriend inside his home and quickly shut the door behind her. Sitting on his couch with her, Naruto decided to voice a question that had been on his mind lately. Hina-chan, how are you feeling? Have you noticed anything since you know what? The beautiful Hyuga heir did, indeed, know what her boyfriend was referencing. They still didn't know what the concoction did after all. Other than feeling really hot, I've been okay. I haven't noticed anything different, and I've been feeling really good for the most part. In fact, just being with you, I feel amazing, Naru-kun. Naruto smiled at this, but on the inside he was worried. When he found out that his girlfriend had been injected with something, he had gone with her to the hospital in the hopes that they could cure her of whatever kind of toxin that bastard had injected into her bloodstream. However, they couldn't find anything wrong with her. In fact, they said she appeared to be healthier than ever before. Still, despite the results, Naruto knew it was only the calm before the storm and had a gut feeling that something bad was coming. If only he knew how right he was. The blonde Hokage in the making was surprised out of his thoughts when he felt his beloved's lips upon his. Blushing fiercely, he slowly found himself returning her kiss and pulled her flush against him. When the kiss began to become more heated, he began to wonder what had gotten into his girlfriend. After they finally broke apart, he decided to voice his question, Hina-chan. Not that I'm complaining, but what was that for? Feeling incredibly flushed and blushing madly, Hinata started breathing heavily as she tried to get her heartbeat back under control. I can't help it right now, Naru-kun. You're just so handsome and I love you so much. I feel so hot right now and I want you so badly. I just. Before she could say anything more, Naruto put one hand to her forehead and the other to his own. Hinata-chan, you're burning up. I'm taking you to the hospital to see Sakura-chan. I'm worried about you. We still don't know what that concoction did to you, and the longer we go with that in your bloodstream, the worse things could become for you. And before Hinata could argue against his decision and claim she was fine, Naruto scooped her up into his arms and used the body flicker technique to escape his apartment and make better time on his way to the hospital at the same time. At the hospital, 2 hours later, the wait for Hinata's test results had been an agonizing one for the both of them. Hinata had been sweating profusely the entire time and had already soaked the bed sheets and covers quite thoroughly. Naruto, on the other hand, was pacing back and forth while holding his girlfriend's left hand. He wanted to stay by her side, but at the same time he wanted to find a way to revive that bastard just so he could kill the punk all over again. Finally, when Sakura Haruno entered the room with a clipboard in hand, they both looked to her with mixed expressions of hopefulness and anxiety wrapped into one. Deciding to get this over with, the lovely young medical ninja proceeded to speak. Well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that Hinata's perfectly healthy. There's really nothing wrong with her besides a high fever and increased hormone levels. The bad news is that we still don't know what that toxin did to her, if anything. Like I said, however, we did find something new, the increased hormone levels. They're actually off the charts, they're that high. It's very unusual. Blinking at this, Naruto decided to voice a question. What does that mean for Hinata-chan? Is she going to be okay? Sakura sighed to herself and ran her fingers through her hair. Honestly, I'm not sure, Naruto. I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know what could happen as a result of this. Still, I would be careful if I were you, Hinata. And Naruto, please look after her. The Pinkett said in a soft tone, hoping that her friends would heed her advice. Squirming a bit, Hinata nodded her head slowly and slowly sat up. I will, Sakura-san. I just wish I wasn't feeling so hot all the time. Is there anything you can recommend to keep this fever under control? Smiling at this, Sakura walked over and performed a simple medical jutsu and pressed her hands to the sides of Hinata's head. After a moment, she pulled away and watched as her good friend breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you, Sakura-san. That feels so much better. Can we go now? Naru-kun and I did have a date planned for today after all, and I want to make sure he keeps that promise. Giggling a bit, Sakura nodded in response and stepped aside so Naruto could help his girlfriend out of bed. Sure, Hinata. Just take it easy and don't strain yourself. Now go on and enjoy your date, you lovebirds. Sakura said as she watched the couple leave the room. Once they were gone, Sakura released a heavy sigh and glanced back at the soaked bed. I really hope you'll be okay, Hinata. I truly do. After a moment, Sakura's thoughts changed to something else entirely and she slumped over and slapped the clipboard on the bed with a groan. Now if only I could get myself a guy, I'd have it made. Hinata just had to go and snatch the only good guy in Konoha, didn't she? The Nightingale. Now we find our darling couple seated in a restaurant that Hinata loves to frequent for one very good reason, the absolutely scrumptious cinnamon buns. At the moment, Naruto was enjoying a hearty brunch of ham and eggs with a side of bacon, while Hinata had some French toast with a rather large plate of cinnamon buns as her side. After all, she frequented this particular restaurant often enough that the owners and employees knew to keep her well supplied with her very favorite treat. Sadly, as they were eating, they couldn't help but notice all the stares they were getting. The women seemed to be scowling at Hinata while the men kept shooting hungry-looking glances at Hinata and death glares at Naruto. Neither of them knew what these looks were about, nor did they want to find out. So they kept to themselves and tried to ignore these looks, but it was becoming increasingly more difficult to do so. Despite being on a date together, the atmosphere just didn't feel all that great to either of them anymore. So the duo ate in silence and they were trying to hurry it up so they could get the hell out of this restaurant as quickly as possible. For Hinata, this was an absolutely miserable experience as she had never had such a thing happen to her before. Never before had she had to deal with such a thing in this restaurant, and she hoped to never experience such a thing here ever again. Things got so much worse when a man sat down next to her in the booth and slung an arm around her shoulders while leaning in close to her. Hey there, baby. Why don't you ditch this loser and get with me? I'll show you a real good time. He said with a wink as he began to creep his other hand ever closer to one of hers. That hand never reached, however, as Hinata's beloved boyfriend had rushed around the second he saw that guy and grabbed the man's hand, breaking it within his grip. Afterwards, Naruto threw the man to the floor and kicked him hard in the side. What the hell do you think you're doing? How dare you try to cop a feel on Hinata-chan like that? Hinata glanced around and couldn't help but feel very scared now. More men were beginning to rise from their seats and were beginning to approach her. Quickly rising to her feet, Hinata clung to her boyfriend's shirt and whispered into his ear. Naru-kun, we need to leave. Now. Curious about why she suddenly wanted to leave, Naruto glanced around and went on guard instantly. What the hell is going on? This isn't normal. Turning around, he nodded to his girlfriend and quickly grasped her hand before rushing towards the restaurant entrance with her. However, before they could leave, a woman stepped in their way and slapped Hinata as hard as she could across the face. You tramp! How dare you come in here and try to seduce my guy? You have a lot of nerve. Blinking in shock as tears sprung to her eyes, Hinata could only stare in horror as more women began to approach them with what she assumed to be the same intent in mind. Feeling a tug on her hand, Hinata looked into her boyfriend's eyes and, upon seeing the look in his eyes, nodded to signify that she was okay. Without a word, they quickly fled the restaurant and took off down the streets to escape the restaurant. Atop the Hokage monument, moments later, taking a few deep breaths as they tried to settle their racing hearts, the two of them sat themselves down atop the Yondaime's head and looked out over the village with wide eyes. After he had caught his breath, Naruto looked into his girlfriend's eyes and quickly pulled her close against him. Hina-hime, are you alright? I'm so sorry. Hinata was shaking like a leaf after what happened and could only sob into her beloved's chest as she clung to him desperately like a lifeline. Why would they do that? I didn't. We didn't. What happened back there, Naru-kun? Thinking on it for a moment, Naruto could only come to one conclusion and he didn't like it one bit. Hina-chan, I think we finally know what that toxin did to you. Remember how Sakura said your hormone levels were elevated to abnormal levels? I think that it's affecting more than just you, sweetheart. Apparently it's capable of affecting those around you as well. Nodding slowly to this as she continued to cry, Hinata could only accept the truth in her love's words. If that's the case, we need to find a cure. I can't go on like this. You saw what happened back there. That man tried to grab Mai and that woman went berserk on me. The only one I ever want touching me is you, Narukoi. At realizing what she just said, both teenagers began to blush such a red that it was a miracle neither of them passed out from all the blood rushing to their heads. Do you really mean that, Hinata Heim? I mean, we aren't exactly ready for such a step, are we? I love you, I do, but, are you sure? Nodding her head timidly as she began to poke her fingers together in her usual nervous habit, Hinata could only smile bashfully up at her boyfriend. Why yes, Naru-kun. I've loved you for so long now and, I keep having naughty dreams about you. I can't help it. At this admission, Naruto had had enough. With an ever-deepening blush, he fell backwards in a dead faint. Seeing this, Hinata meeped and began to try and shake her boyfriend awake again, only to giggle nervously as she realized that she had just admitted to something she had been keeping secret from him for some time now. Oops. Later that day, Hinata and Naruto were currently standing before both the Godaime and Rokudaime Hokages, Tsunade and Kakashi respectively. Kakashi was sitting behind his desk in the big comfy chair while Tsunade sat off to the side on the comfy couch. Hinata and Naruto, on the other hand, were standing in the center of the room staring directly into Kakashi's eyes. Taking a deep breath, Naruto began to explain the events of the day and ask his request at the same time. Kakashi-sensei, Granny Tsunade, I'd like to request time off from missions for both my girlfriend and myself. Before you ask why, it's important that you hear us out. Closing his eyes for a moment as he pictured the events of the day in his mind, Naruto squeezed Hinata's hand gently to reassure her that he was here for her and that he loved her as she loved him. If you'll recall, on Hinata's last mission, she was injected with some kind of drug of which the effects we were unsure of and still aren't fully aware of to this day. Well, today we learned from Sakura-chan that Hinata's hormone levels were off the charts weird. Naruto explained. Hinata proceeded to take it from here. Well, after we left the hospital, we went on our date to my favorite restaurant. I had been getting weird looks all day up to that point from the men of the village, and, well, they just continued from there. Sighing to herself, Hinata continued despite the fact that she could feel tears stinging at her eyes again. While at the restaurant, a man tried to grab my. When we tried to leave the restaurant after that, a woman claimed I was trying to steal her boyfriend, despite the fact I hadn't done a thing. She proceeded to slap me before Naruto-kun and I could leave. Naruto took over once again at this point. Once we escaped from the crowd of people, we noticed the same looks as before on the people of the village. No matter where we went, it was the same on everybody. When we eventually made it to the Hokage monument, we determined that the drug Hinata-chan was injected with has made it so not only is Hinata being affected by her increased hormone levels in some way, but her increased hormones are affecting the people around her as well. I'm immune to it, but that's likely due to my being a Jinchuriki. I'm not sure if anyone else will be immune to the drug's effects. After hearing their explanation of the day's events and especially about the hormone imbalance, Kakashi released a heavy sigh and nodded his head. That would explain why I'm feeling so hot and bothered right now. I've been trying to fight off the urge to kiss Hinata senseless this entire time. That's a dangerous drug indeed. Your request to take time off of missions is granted, Naruto-kun, Hinata-san. Tsunade-sama, do you have anything else to add? Frowning to herself, Tsunade walked over to Hinata and began to perform a scan with one of her medical jutsu. After she had finished, the Godaime Hokage frowned to herself and began to pace back and forth throughout the room. You're in a dangerous situation right now, Hinata. If you can't find some way to control your hormones, you're going to be putting yourself in further danger no matter where you go in the village. If I had to guess, I'd say your feelings of love for Naruto are likely causing your hormones to go off kilter in a certain direction. As a result of this, not only are you feeling all hot and bothered, but it's affecting the people around you in a certain way as well. Releasing a heavy sigh at this, the busty older woman nodded her head and continued speaking. Due to your feelings for Naruto, you release a certain pheromone and it's going to affect men and women in a certain way, just like I said. Men are going to become overpowered by their lust and attempt to, well, they're going to attempt to do things to you that you are not going to like. As for women, I'm not entirely sure how they're going to react. While some would likely react with jealousy, as indicated by that woman's behavior earlier, I don't know if that's how the majority will act or if that's just one of many possible reactions to this particular pheromone you're exuding. Sighing again, Tsunade stopped her pacing and looked Hinata in the eyes. I'm fairly certain that how you're feeling will determine what pheromones you release and how you affect those around you. Say for instance you're feeling jealous or depressed. We have no way of knowing just yet how those around you will react. Right now we only know how your feelings of love and lust for Naruto-kun affects those around you. Placing one of her hands on Hinata's shoulder and the other on one of Naruto's shoulders, Tsunade glanced between them and spoke in a serious tone of voice. Hinata, you need to be extra careful to try and keep your feelings in check. And Naruto, seeing she had his attention, Tsunade continued. Since you aren't affected by these pheromones at all, you need to look after her. I would recommend going to the Hyuga compound with her and packing up everything you can of Hinata's and moving her into your home. Actually, now that I think on it. Turning to Kakashi, Tsunade motioned towards Minato's portrait on the wall. Now would be the perfect time to give Naruto his inheritance, don't you think, Kakashi? If Hinata's going to be living with Naruto-kun, then it's best that they don't live in that dingy, rundown apartment of his. Nodding in agreement at this, Kakashi rose from his chair and walked over to the Yondaime's portrait and pulled it off of the wall. Motioning Naruto to join him, Kakashi smeared his blood upon a seal that rested there. Upon doing so, 3 scrolls popped into existence into Naruto's waiting hands. What are these? Naruto queried. Those, Naruto, are everything that your parents left for you. Unfortunately, their home was destroyed, but we've had new homes built thanks to Tazuna-san, Tenzo, and the other hired builders after Pain's assault. With all the money you'll find in there, you'll have more than enough to purchase a rather large home in the clan district of the village if you'd like. I'm sure Hinata would like to stay close to home if she could. Nodding in appreciation at this, Hinata walked over to her boyfriend and hugged him from behind, knowingly pressing her assets into his back as she looked over his shoulder at the scrolls. You should take a look at those once we get moved into our new home, Naru-kun. For now, let's go purchase our new home just like Rokudime-sama said. I'm looking forward to getting the chance to just relax with you, my sweet Naru-kun. Hinata said with a slight giggle at the end. Tsunade couldn't help but facepalm as she watched the 2 lovebirds. Hinata, you're really going to need to work on learning how to control yourself. I understand that you're under the effects of this drug, but if you want to avoid any future problems, you're going to need to get control of yourself. So please, try to tone down the lovey-dovey stuff, okay? Turning to pout at the blonde Godime Hokage, Hinata nodded her head reluctantly and replied with a, yes Tsunade-sama. I'll try, but it's not easy. I love my Naru-kun so much that I can barely contain myself right now. Before this drug, I had such a hard time truly expressing myself, but now I feel so confident and all I want to do is cling to my boyfriend and not let go. I can barely contain myself. She said before giggling and clinging to Naruto's arm as he looked at her with an amused smile on his face. Sighing to herself, Tsunade slumped her shoulders and looked to the Rokudime Hokage, who could only shrug in response. This is going to be such a problem if she can't get her damn hormones under control. The busty Godime thought to herself. Later, Hyuga compound. As they entered the Hyuga compound together, Naruto couldn't help but notice that his girlfriend's mood shifted from giddy to solemn and resigned. Turning to her, he placed his hands upon her shoulders and turned her to face him. Sweetie, What's the matter? Are you feeling okay? Slowly nodding her head, Hinata looked into her boyfriend's eyes and leaned into him, wrapping her arms around him in a tight hug. I'm just thinking Naru-kun, that's all. I've lived here all my life, and now because of this, I'm moving out. I'm just not sure how to feel is all. I'm happy to be moving in with you, but at the same time I'll miss my family. It's hard to accept. Smiling down at her, Naruto held Hinata close and began gently running his fingers through her hair. It'll be okay, sweetheart. I promise. We can visit anytime that you want and we'll be living real close by. In fact, we did just purchase a home only a couple of blocks away. There's no reason you can't have the best of both worlds, you know. With a wide grin on his face, Naruto began to tickle his girlfriend and smirked at her. In fact, I guarantee you that we can invite your sister over anytime you want and we'll even keep a bedroom open for her so she can sleep over. How's that sound to you, Hina? Giggling from not just the tickling, but from happiness as well, Hinata smiled in response and nodded her head. With a quick swat from her hand, she stopped her boyfriend's tickling and stood on her tiptoes to kiss her taller boyfriend on the lips ever so softly. I'm so lucky to have you, Naru-kun. I love you so much. I think I'm the lucky one here, Hina. You're so beautiful and sweet. How did I ever get so lucky as to earn your love, Naruto asked with a soft chuckle as he took her hand and guided her inside the compound. With a smirk on her face, Hinata winked at him and replied with, "You just got lucky, you big hunk, you. Saving a damsel in distress back when we were younger and being such a wonderful man earned you some major points with me too, though." After a brief moment, the two of them began to giggle as they continued on their way to Hinata's room. Upon reaching it, they found Hanabi waiting there with their father, Hiyashi Hyuga. He had a stern look on his face, while Hanabi was just happy to see her sister well. "Hinata-chan, I was worried about you. Just what is going on with you lately?" Hiyashi queried, quite obviously concerned for his daughter's well-being. Sighing, Hinata and Naruto proceeded to explain the situation to Hiyashi and Hanabi both, seeing as they were her immediate family and did deserve to know after all. When they had finished, Hiyashi had a look of horror on his face and quickly scooped his daughter up in a hug and held her close. "I'm so sorry you had to experience such a thing, my beautiful daughter. Are you alright?" Blushing a bit, Hinata could only nod her head as she patted her father's back. "I am. Naruto-kun was there for me. But I'm afraid I can't stay here. There's too high a risk of one of our clan members going wild because of the pheromones I'm releasing. So Rokudaime-sama and Tsunade-sama have decided that I should move in with Naru-kun, at least until this is over. Though if I have my way I'll be living with him for the rest of my life." Hinata thought to herself with a devilish grin on her face that Hanabi noticed. Just seeing it sent a small shiver down the younger woman's spine. Stepping back from his eldest daughter, Hiyashi looked towards the man he hoped would become his son-in-law given time. "I want you to take good care of my daughter Naruto Uzumaki-san. Do not let anything happen to her or I will have your head. Do you understand me?" the kindly father asked with a death glare directed at the teenage boy. Gulping slightly, the young blonde nodded his head quickly and even saluted the man. Aye, Hiyashi, sir. As you command. I shall keep Hinata safe no matter what, and that's a promise," he exclaimed, though it was easy to see that the poor boy was nervous in the presence of his girlfriend's father. Hinata frowned at this and, after a moment's hesitation, reached up and thwacked her father in the back of the head with her left hand curled into a fist. "No frightening my boyfriend," she exclaimed in an annoyed tone of voice. Needless to say, this action shocked all three of those present and caused Hiyashi to begin crying crocodile tears at being struck by his daughter. "Don't you try that with me. I love Naru-kun to death and you should know he takes good care of me. Nothing untoward will happen to me, you'll see. Besides," here Hinata grinned darkly and she pulled Naruto up against her before capturing his lips with hers in a rather heated kiss. When she finally pulled back, a small string of saliva connected them. Licking her lips with a rather seductive grin on her face, Hinata turned to her father and pointed at her boyfriend. If anything is going to happen to me, it's going to be completely consensual and I'm going to be doing it with my precious Naruto. And neither you nor anyone else is going to stop me. Got it, father? At hearing all of this being confessed by his daughter, Hiyashi was stunned speechless and his eyes were widened almost comically. After a moment, his mouth hung open and you could practically see his soul leaving his body as he struggled to form cohesive thoughts and string together a proper response to what he had just heard. Meanwhile, Hanabi was blushing up a storm and was covering her cheeks in embarrassment at what she just heard. Sister, why would you say such things out loud? Not to mention you said that in front of father of all people. What are you thinking? She shouted. Clearly she was in need of a good mental scrubbing to get the M-rated images of her sister and her boyfriend out of her mind. Giggling to herself, Hinata walked over to her sister and hugged her close so that Hanabi's head rested against her rather large bosom. Oh, you'll understand someday, Hanabi-chan. I promise. For now, why don't you drag father off to his room? He looks like he could use some rest. The heiress suggested with a smile before she walked into her room to begin packing her things. When Hanabi turned from staring at Hinata's doorway to look back at her father, she couldn't help but want to facepalm. There, kneeling down in front of her father and poking him with a stick that he got from who the hell knows where, was Naruto. Naruto, go help my sister and stop poking my father. Actually, first, where the heck did you get that stick? Blinking to himself, Naruto looked down at the stick in his hand and then looked back at Hanabi with a shrug. Honestly, I have no idea. Seeing Hanabi facepalm, Naruto chuckled a bit and dropped the stick by Hiyashi's head before following his girlfriend into her room to help her pack. After Naruto had vacated the hall, Hanabi turned back to her father and looked down at the still comatose man. Sighing to herself, she reached down and grabbed the collar of his robe. Come on, father, snap out of it already. She muttered to herself as she proceeded to begin dragging him down the hallway towards his room, giggling to herself as she purposely aimed to bonk his head on everything she could along the way. This is actually kind of fun. Later, Naruto's new home. After getting everything of Hinata's moved into their new house and put just where she wanted it, the two of them had decided it was now a good time to see what was within the scrolls that Naruto's parents had left for him. So now, here they were in the living room of their new place, seated on their new couch, with the scrolls lying before them on their coffee table. I still think it's amazing that we spent all that money on new furniture and a new house and we still didn't make much of a dent in all that money they left you, Naru-kun. I wonder what the other two scrolls have in them. Hinata said as she rested her head on Naruto's left shoulder while she wrapped her arms around his sides. With a gentle shrug of his shoulders, so as not to disturb his girlfriend, Naruto picked up the first of the scrolls and set it aside, already knowing that it contained a large amount of money that he knew he would have no earthly way of spending it all in his lifetime. Then he turned his attention to the second scroll and opened it before pushing his chakra into the seal array in the center. Out popped a letter addressed to him along with a bunch of jutsu scrolls, a small journal, and a large number of tri-pronged kunai. Immediately recognizing these for what they were, Naruto grew ecstatic and quickly picked one up. Inspecting it closely, he took a look at the small seal on the kunai and grew giddy. These are my dad's Harem, Flying Thunder God, kunai. This is so cool, Dadbeo. He said in an excited tone of voice. Giggling to herself, Hinata picked up the journal and began to look through it. After a moment, she realized what she was holding. It looks like these are all of his notes on his various techniques, but mostly on the Harem no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique. I think he left these for you so he could pass on his legacy to his son, Naru-kun. She surmised. Nodding his head, Naruto picked up the letter addressed to him and began to read it aloud. Dear Naruto, if you're reading this, it means I'm dead. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to raise you, my precious son. I hope that the villagers have treated you well and saw you for the hero you were meant to be. If they haven't, Then there will be hell to pay when they reach the afterlife, I can guarantee you that much. Enough of that though. My son, I leave to you everything I own, including my Harishan Kanai and the notes on my technique as well. My hope is that you'll use this technique to protect your loved ones in the village if you so choose. I have also left you scrolls on all the jutsu I ever learned in the hopes that they might prove useful to you. Finally, I left you all the money that your mother and I accumulated throughout our careers and during my reign as Hokage. Please use it well and don't go wasting it on life's simple pleasures like my sensei was wont to do. I don't want to have to give you a long lecture once we meet in the afterlife. Most of all, I just want you to be happy, Naruto. That is all a father will ever wish for is their child's happiness and well-being. Do your best and make me proud to call you my son. And no matter what, don't die young. Live a long life full of love and smiles, got it? I love you, my precious son. Minato Namikaze. Naruto had a big smile on his face after reading this letter, but at the same time he couldn't help but shed a few tears. You were always thinking of me, weren't you, Dad? Seeing the state her beloved Naru-kun was in, Hinata reached up and gently brushed away his tears with the back of her right index finger. Are you alright, Naruto-kun? It sounds like he really loved you and only wanted what was best for you. Chuckling softly, Naruto nodded his head before offering his girlfriend a wide smile. I'm alright. Thank you, sweetheart. Let's see what my mom had to say, shall we? Reaching for the final scroll, Naruto picked it up and unsealed its contents. What popped out of this scroll was a long sword, a katana to be precise, wrapped in a beautiful dark red sheath with a golden-colored tassel on the handle of the blade. The sheath itself had a gold dragon intertwined with a silver dragon going around it in a spiraling fashion down the length of the sheath. Aside from this, more jutsu scrolls appeared on the table, along with a few rather large books on sealing that appear to have been written by Kushina Uzumaki herself. Though one looked to have been written by Mito Uzumaki. Finally, there were scrolls and a book on kenjutsu mixed in with the bunch of things that had popped out. Looking around at everything, Naruto noticed a small letter resting atop one of the books and picked it up. Once again he chose to read this one aloud. My dear Naruto-kun, I hate doing this, but if you're reading this, then odds are that I'm dead. I've left everything I own to you, my darling son. My sword, Benihime Crimson Princess, now belongs to you, Naruto-kun. I am also leaving you all of my books on sealing, including the one gifted to me by Mito Uzumaki herself. Finally, I have left you scrolls on all my jutsu, both nin and kenjutsu. In fact, I even left you a scroll for you to study so you can learn my kenjutsu style. I bet you'll like that. You get to be even closer to your awesome mother, Databane. Anyways, enough about the things I left you. I want you to be a good boy, Naruto-kun. You deserve to grow up and live a happy life, but I'm sure the village won't respect your father's wishes for you to be seen as a hero. Don't you worry though, I'll be sure to make them suffer for everything they've ever done to you once they get to the afterlife, I guarantee it. Gah, there I go rambling again. I wanted to give you some life advice to follow. First, be careful with your money. Don't go spending it all at once or all on one thing. Believe me, I know how tempting it can be to spend all of your money on ramen, but it's not the smart thing to do. Second, try to find a good girl, or maybe 2 or 3, you are the last Uzumaki male in the world after all, and settle down with her. Have lots of children together and make sure to give me lots of grandbabies. But more than anything, be sure to treat your girl well and know that the girl is always right, even if they're wrong. It's a universal law that you should know not to question. Minato, sadly, never learned this lesson and oftentimes slept on the couch because he was too stupid to learn his lesson. Stupid idiot. Third, I know you're likely to inherit my temper. Try your best to keep it in check and don't make rash decisions that might get you into trouble. I want you to be smart and to take the high road in things, not fall to the level of all the idiots out there and argue over stupid things. Finally, just know that no matter what, I'll always be proud of you, Naruto-kun. A mother will always love her children unconditionally, and so my love will always be yours. I love you, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle as he read his mother's letter. After all, some of the things she said in her letter were rather amusing to both him and his girlfriend. Setting the letter back down on the coffee table, Naruto turned to his girlfriend and hugged her close to him. Nestling his face into the crook of her neck, Naruto inhaled deeply and released his breath slowly. They really loved me dearly, didn't they, Hina-hime? Nodding her head, the Hyuga heiress held her beloved closer and kissed the top of Naruto's head. They did, Naru-kun. Never doubt that. How about we collect everything and put it all away? You can read through the notes and books later. For now, we should think about getting to bed. It is rather late after all. Removing his head from his girlfriend's neck, Naruto nodded slowly and smiled at her. You're right. Thank you for being here for me, Hinata-chan. You're a real angel, he admitted before leaning in and kissing her lips tenderly. Blushing, Hinata returned her lover's kiss and pressed herself against him as she held him close. When they parted, she giggled happily. I hope you know that now that we're living together, we're sleeping in the same bed. I refuse to take no for an answer to Mr. Uzumaki. Face turning a deep scarlet shade, Naruto began trying to stammer out a response, only for his girlfriend to giggle as she went about sealing everything back up again. I don't see what you're so nervous about, Naru-kun. Or are you just so excited to see me in my see-through nightie that you can't control yourself? Hinata teased with a devilish grin on her face. After taking a moment to allow what Hinata said to register in his brain, Naruto's face flushed even more and he giggled perversely for a moment before he fell backwards on the couch in a dead faint. Giggling to herself, the beautiful, blue-haired woman finished sealing everything before she began to run her fingers through her boyfriend's hair. Normally I'm the one to faint, my beloved Naru-kun. But now that I'm feeling like this, it's time to play a little. I think I'll give you a little surprise when you wake up. With a grin, Hinata lifted her boyfriend into her arms and carried him upstairs to the bedroom they would be sharing from this point on. Oh, the things I'll do to you when you wake up, my sweet, sweet Naruto-kun. At this thought, Hinata began to giggle perversely as she quickened her pace up the stairs. It was bound to be a long, yet entertaining night for the young couple. The next day found Naruto and Hinata at the hospital once again. However, this time the two of them were positively glowing. When their friend, Sakura Haruno, entered the room with clipboard in hand, she couldn't help but blink in confusion at the happily smiling couple that couldn't stop giggling together. Okay, do I even want to know what's going on with you two this time? The Pinkett asked with a tired sigh following shortly afterwards. Hinata turned to her good friend with a smirk on her face. Sakura knew that what she was about to hear was likely to be mentally scarring. Oh, Sakura-san, last night was wonderful. So was this morning. You cannot believe the kind of stamina this hunk of a man has in the bedroom. Oh Kami, it's wonderful. I've never felt so alive. Hinata exclaimed before breaking out into a fit of giggles once again. At hearing this, Sakura turned a very deep shade of red before turning to look at Naruto. She didn't know what she was planning to do, but when she saw his face matching the same shade as hers, she realized that he was just as embarrassed as she was. So, with a heavy sigh, the beautiful young doctor turned her gaze to Hinata and slapped her clipboard down on the bedside table. Please, Hinata, please try to refrain from saying anything more that could scar my mind. I don't need to hear about what you and Naruto choose to do behind closed doors. Giggling evilly, Hinata leaned closer and whispered into Sakura's left ear. Oh really? So you aren't the least bit curious about how big it is or how wonderful it feels to finally have your love inside of you pounding into your sacred spot over and over in. Steam pouring out of her ears, Sakura slapped a hand over Hinata's mouth and shouted, enough already. Dear Kami, please stop it. I don't want to hear about how good Naruto-kun is in the sack. Taking a few deep breaths to try and calm her racing heart, the lovely, Emerald-eyed doctor turned to her blonde-haired friend and decided to question him. Naruto-kun, perhaps you could enlighten me as to why you've decided to visit since I can't get anything but dirty talk from my girlfriend. Yeah, I getcha. Naruto finished for her as he fought to get his blush under control. Hinata was definitely feeling a lot bolder ever since the drug took hold, and he was finding it hard to keep himself under control as a result of it. It didn't help that the entire time they were waiting for Sakura to arrive that his girlfriend kept teasing him relentlessly in every way she could think of. Nibbling on his earlobe, soft kisses along his neck and collarbone, pinching and groping his butt, blowing lightly on his neck and ear, you name it, and she would do it just to get a reaction out of him. It was almost like last night wasn't enough to satiate the woman. No, now that he thought on it, he was damn sure that last night wasn't enough to satisfy her despite how exhausted the two of them were after their activities. Sighing heavily to himself, Naruto decided to explain the problem to his dear friend. Yesterday, we found out what that toxin did the hard way. I'm not sure if Granny Tsunade told you or not yet, receiving a nod from Sakura to signify that she did, indeed, receive the information from Tsunade. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief that he wouldn't have to explain everything to her. Good. Anyways, I figured that you might be able to help us out. Do you think you might be able to help cure Hina-chan somehow? Frowning at this, Sakura glanced from Naruto to Hinata and had to pause for a moment. Hinata was leaning into her boyfriend again and wouldn't stop nibbling on his ear while one of her hands was rubbing at his right thigh, much to his continued embarrassment. Sighing, Sakura nodded slowly. I can try, but it won't be easy and it won't be an immediate cure, Naruto. It would help if I had notes on the toxin used so I had something to work off of. For now, I'll take some blood samples and see if I can't figure something out from those. With a shrug of her shoulders, Sakura went about preparing the equipment needed to extract the blood samples while Naruto and Hinata waited patiently. As they did, Hinata couldn't help but want to play around a bit. So, when Sakura turned her back on the duo, she reached down her boyfriend's pants and gently grasped his member in her hand before giving it a few good strokes. Leaning into him again, she placed a soft kiss upon his cheek and whispered to him quietly. I love you so much, my handsome Naru-kun. I can't wait to get you alone again. Last night was wonderful. Stifling his moan, Naruto could only nod his head to what his girlfriend had just said. Last night had truly been one for the memories. In fact, as she retracted her hand the moment Sakura turned back around, Naruto let out a little whimper as his mind began to play back the memories of last night. Naruto. Snap out of it already. Sakura shouted at him as she shook the man back and forth on the bed. When his eyes returned to focus, Sakura breathed a sigh of relief. You were giggling like Jiraiya-sama for 15 whole minutes. What the hell were you even thinking about? She asked before she could stop herself. Hinata smirked at this and reached down her boyfriend's pants again. Oh, I think I can imagine what was on his mind. Judging from the feel of this baby, I think it's safe to say he was remembering the events of last night. Isn't that right, big boy? Leaning into her boyfriend, she kissed his cheek and whispered seductively to him. We went all night long after all. I bet you can't wait for tonight, can you? Before he could stop himself, Naruto began to giggle perversely again and nodded in response. Oh yeah. Throwing her hands up in the air, the pink-haired woman turned around and stormed towards the door. I give up. If you two are going to jump each other, do it when I'm not in the room, please. I'll try to come up with a cure, but it could take weeks, perhaps even months. In the meantime, just as Tsunade-sama recommended, you need to get your girlfriend under control, Naruto-kun. Now I'll be going. I don't want to see you two doing that in a hospital room. And with her piece being said, Sakura opened the door and left the room. As soon as Sakura was gone, Hinata pushed her boyfriend back on the bed and began to giggle. What do you say to doing it again, right here in the hospital? She asked with a sly grin on her face. Blushing badly, Naruto glanced towards the door for a moment before looking into his beloved Hina-chan's eyes. Hina-hime, Sakura-chan's right, we can't do this here. The odds of us being caught are way too high. Before he could continue his protests, the beautiful brunette kissed him to shut him up. When she pulled away, she began to rub his crotch through his pants. Oh hush, you're already ready and waiting for me. You want this just as much as I do, don't you? Besides, don't you think the thrill of knowing we could be caught at any moment makes it so much better? Blinking in shock at this, Naruto's rational side was yelling at him to protest this vehemently. However, his lower head was demanding that he give in and make his girl feel special. So, like any smart man would, Naruto gave in to his lower head. However, it was at this moment that a certain black-haired doctor entered the room and shouted, "Just what the heck is going on in here?" When this woman saw both Naruto and Hinata in the inn standing together in front of a drenched window pane, she couldn't help but blush madly and spin around, slapping her hands to her face and shouting out apologies left and right for waltzing in on them in the middle of that. A few moments later, however, this doctor realized who it was she had seen and spun back around with wide eyes. Naruto-kun, Hinata-san. What do the two of you think you're doing in a hospital room of all places? She shouted, clearly unable to believe that these two would do such a thing, despite the fact that she had caught them red-handed. After taking a moment to get dressed, the duo sat upon the bed after changing the sheets of course, and bowed their heads in what the woman hoped was shame and not just embarrassment. We're sorry, Shizune. We kind of just got caught up in the moment and things happened and, well, Naruto tried to explain, but was interrupted. It was wonderful and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Hinata proclaimed as she threw a fist into the air with a lopsided grin on her face. Facepalming, Shizune couldn't believe that Hinata had just said such a thing. Looking to Naruto, she just had to voice the question on her mind, did you really have to corrupt your girlfriend this badly, Naruto-kun? I mean, just look at her. All she can think about right now is getting into your pants. Feeling affronted by this, Naruto spoke up. Hey, I didn't do anything. Besides, well, you know, nodding towards the window that had yet to be cleaned, Naruto couldn't help the sheepish smile that crossed his face at this point. Anyways, I'm guessing Granny Tsunade and Sakura-chan haven't told you yet. Confused by this, Shizune decided to prompt her younger brother figure to continue on. Told me what, Naruto-kun? And Hinata, if you're done drifting off into land, please clean up the mess you made of the window while I speak with Naruto-kun. Giving a mock salute to the woman, Hinata happily hopped off of the bed. However, after landing, she wobbled a bit and began to giggle. Ooh, I'm a little dizzy after all of that fun. Limping over to get some cleaning supplies, she left Naruto and Shizune to talk. Taking a deep breath and releasing it slowly, Naruto began to tell Shizune everything. A little over a week ago, Hinata-chan went on a mission with her old team. It was during this mission that she was injected with some kind of unknown toxin. For an entire week we didn't know what this toxin was meant to do because she didn't show any signs of being sick and nothing was registering in the medical exams taken. Nodding her head at this, Shizune could fathom a guess at where this was going. Alright, I can understand that. But what does this toxin have to do with you and Hinata having in a hospital room? Sighing heavily, Naruto raised a hand and motioned for Shizune to stay quiet. I was getting to that. Just, please stay quiet until I've finished, okay, Shizune? Receiving a nod in assent, Naruto nodded in return and proceeded on with his tale. Yesterday, Hina-chan began to run a high fever. Once again we visited the hospital and found out that her hormone levels were off the charts. Other than that, however, Hinata-chan was just fine both physically and mentally. Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto looked over to his girlfriend who was busying herself by cleaning up the mess she had made of the window. While we were out on our date, we kind of found out what the toxin did the hard way. Some asshole tried to grope Hinata's while a woman slapped her and claimed she was making googly eyes at her boyfriend. Taking a deep breath, Naruto turned back to his older sister figure and continued his tale. We went to both Kakashi-sensei and Granny Tsunade and requested time off from missions for a while. It was there that Tsunade determined that Hinata Hime's releasing strong pheromones that are affecting the people around her in ways are as of yet unknown to us. The only thing we know for sure is that when Hinata Hime's around me or thinking of me, she releases a pheromone that causes men to give into their lust and attempt to do things to her. Meanwhile, it seems some women will give into their feelings of envy while others don't appear to be affected at all. Then again, it's like I said, we don't know all of the effects of these pheromones just yet, and we don't know how Hinata-chan's mood will affect these pheromones. So really, anything could end up happening. Since I'm the only male that's completely immune to the pheromones effects, Hinata-chan has moved in with me for the time being and well, it's like Hinata's gone into heat or something. Shizune frowned here and glanced between the two of them. Please tell me the two of you are at least using some kind of protection. Receiving one sigh and a shake of the head from Naruto and a wolfish grin and a happy, nope, and proud of it. From Hinata, Shizune couldn't help but facepalm again. Damn it, Naruto-kun. You do know that if she ends up pregnant, not only is Hiashi-sama going to try and kill you, but Tsunade-sama will too, right? Hinata walked over and sat down beside her beloved at this point and looked hard into Shizune's eyes. Father can certainly try, but he won't succeed. I've already made it clear that I was going to bed my Naruto-kun and bed him. I most certainly did. Many times so far, both last night and just moments ago. And let me tell you something, Shizune-san, he is a beast in the sack. I'm so happy he's my man. At hearing this confession, Shizune palmed her face once again and turned such a deep shade of scarlet that it looked like her hair might light on fire at any second. Hinata, I did not need to hear that about Naruto-kun now or ever. Sighing to herself, Shizune took a few deep inhalations of breath and released them slowly to calm her nerves before she looked them both in the eyes once again. Regardless, if you two have been having that much unprotected, then I'm going to have to ask you to return to the hospital in a couple of weeks for a pregnancy test. Hinata. Naruto, you're coming with her, you hear me? Nodding at this, the couple hugged each other close and smiled at Shizune. We promise that we'll be here for that appointment, Shizune. I promise that if Hinata Hime's pregnant, I'll go above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that our children are the best cared for and the smartest darn children you'll find anywhere. Of course, I still kind of have to deal with Hinata-chan's dad, and that could get to be all kinds of messy. Naruto vowed with a sheepish admission at the end. Sensing her desired one's nervousness, Hinata gently intertwined her fingers with his and smiled up at him. Sweetheart, I promise you that you have nothing to worry about from my father. I'll deal with him when it comes time to tell him that I'm pregnant, okay? Besides, if he knows what's good for him, he'll be ecstatic for us. I know Hanabi will be happy for us at least. After all, she'll be getting a new nephew and or niece to pamper. Hinata promised. Calming down slightly from this, Naruto thanked his girlfriend and gave her a sweet kiss on the lips before looking towards his sister figure. Shizune, would it be alright for the two of us to leave now? I promise we won't do something like, well, that again in the hospital. It was just a one-time thing, right, sweetheart? Smiling sweetly at Shizune, Hinata nodded her head while crossing the fingers of her right hand behind her back. Of course. I promise that we won't do anything like this again so long as we live. You have my word, Shizune-san. Not. That was so hot and I'm so doing that again if I can talk my lovely Naru-kun into it. Shizune stared hard into their eyes for a time before sighing reluctantly and nodding her head. Alright, fine. Just go already and try not to get caught in a public place again. You might not get so lucky next time. You could get in serious trouble for something like that. Once the duo had left the hospital room with Naruto offering her a simple, yes, ma'am. In response and Hinata still smiling that same, sweet smile, Shizune couldn't help but shake her head in exasperation. At least Naruto was sincere. Hinata was lying through her damn teeth, that much was obvious to anyone with a brain. She's going to try and get him to screw her senseless anywhere she can, I swear. Still, was it really that good? Hokage Tower. Moments later. I thought you two wanted to take a break from missions. Now you want to go on one. Why? Kakashi asked the couple sitting across from him in his office. Taking a look into his love's eyes, Naruto nodded once before looking back into the Rokudaim's eyes. Kakashi-sensei, according to Sakura-chan, if she had notes on the toxin used, it would make it easier for her to develop a cure. That's why the two of us have come to you, to ask if we could go on a mission to search that man's known hideouts for any notes on any of his poisons, toxins, etc. that might be of any help in curing Hinata. Nodding his head in understanding, Kakashi turned in his swivel chair to look out the window. Releasing a heavy sigh, the silver-haired man shook his head and spoke his answer. I'm afraid the answer is no, Naruto-kun. You and Hinata-chan should stay here. Before you try to argue, hear me out. Rising from his chair, Kakashi turned his gaze upon his student and his girlfriend, and they could immediately see that he was being completely serious now. If you think the people within Konoha are dangerous for Hinata at the moment, just imagine what missing Nin would be like. We still don't know exactly what the effects of these pheromones are, nor do we know what kinds of effects the hormone imbalance could be causing within Hinata. Naruto and Hinata both gave Kakashi deadpan stares at this and thought in unison, speak for yourself, numbskull. Hinata, have gone into an extreme heat. That's what the toxin has done to her, me. Now feels like jumping him every 10 freaking seconds. Snapping his fingers to get their attention back on him, Kakashi continued. Now that I have your attention once again, allow me to continue. Kakashi said. Therefore, I have decided that it's safest for you two to remain in the village. I will be sending the remaining members of Team 8 and Sakura-chan to search the bases. I'll call them together tomorrow morning and send them out then. Do you understand me? Receiving nods in response, Kakashi smiled with both of his eyes and nodded as well. Good. Now go on, you two lovebirds, go do whatever you two want to do with the rest of your day. After the couple left his office, Kakashi couldn't help but glance down at a particular report on his desk and quirk an eyebrow in curiosity. Noise complaints at the hospital. I wonder what that's about. Serenity Tea Shop. Later that evening, Sakura and Ino were currently sitting across a table from one another, the both of them enjoying two different types of tea as they just relished in the other's company. After a long moment of silence, Sakura finally breathed a heavy sigh and slumped in her chair after setting her teacup down on the table. I just can't take it anymore, Ino. I really can't. Curious about what could be bothering her best friend, Ino placed her teacup down and reached across the table, gently placing one of her hands atop her friend's own. Can't take what? What's the matter, Sakura? Looking into her best friend's eyes, the pinkett released a frustrated sigh before looking skywards at the setting sun. I'm lonely, Ino. With Sasuke dead, we kind of had to move on from him, you know. Besides, he had turned into such a scumbag, it wasn't all that hard to get over him. But then when you get back to it and start to really think about the guys we know, the only one that's really worth it was already taken by the time I realized it. And when I really got to thinking about it, I realized that I really do feel something for him. Earlier certainly didn't help things any. Ino frowned and nodded her head in understanding. You're talking about Naruto-kun, aren't you? Believe me, I understand what you mean. I like the guy too. It's too bad Hinata snatched him up before one of us could, huh? But what do you mean about earlier? Ino queried, quite curious to know what her friend was talking about. Blushing profusely, Sakura leaned across the table and began to whisper to her friend. After I left their hospital room, I secretly stayed right outside the room. The two of them began having right there in the hospital. It was so hot and Naruto's so big. I couldn't help myself. I just kept watching and I couldn't help myself, Ino. I was so close too, but then I saw Shizune and I ran away and I just, Ino began to blush as well as she caught on to what her friend was implicating and nodded in understanding. I see. Still, I can't believe they'd do such a thing right there in the hospital of all places. That certainly doesn't sound like something Hinata would ever do. Does it have something to do with that mission she went on recently? Nodding her head in response, Sakura released a heavy sigh and began to explain the problem to her blonde friend. By the time she had finished, Ino was stunned. I see. Well, it sounds to me like it's also put Hinata into a type of heat similar to the kind animals go into, if you ask me. I mean, just look at what she did there in the hospital room. That is not normal Hinata behavior and you know it. The pink-haired doctor could only nod her head in agreement. I know. But all I can think of is Naruto's heart as he plowed into her from behind. I keep imagining myself in Hinata's position and I get so wet just thinking about it. Is it wrong of me to want to experience that for myself? Blushing from the embarrassment of hearing such a thing coming from her friend's mouth, Ino quickly shook it off and stammered out her reply. And not really. I mean, I'd probably be feeling the same way if I was there to witness such a thing. I have to admit, you've really got me curious about it now. I kind of wish I could see the real thing for myself now, honestly. Sakura grinned at this and nodded. Trust me, you wouldn't regret it. If only I could have gotten to him first. I kind of miss when he used to fawn over me, you know. Ino nodded absent-mindedly at this question. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Damn it. Now she's really got me curious about seeing that. Stupid forehead. Third training ground. Currently we find our lovely couple sitting together by the posts in the third training ground going over a few of the jutsu scrolls left to Naruto by his parents. Seeing as how they were currently stuck in the village and not allowed to go on any missions for the foreseeable future, they wanted to find something else to do besides attempting to screw each other's brains out every 5 seconds. So they chose to find a good training ground to practice Naruto's new jutsu, starting with the simple ones of course. How about this one first, Naru-kun? It's a simple D-rank water release one that I think you could do pretty easily. Hinata suggested as she held up the selected scroll for her boyfriend. Taking it from her, Naruto looked it over with a smile on his face and nodded as he proceeded to head on over to the pond with Hinata, after collecting their things of course. Couldn't leave those sitting there for people to steal after all. And proceeded to look over the instructions for the simple jutsu. After a moment, he performed the 4 necessary hand seals and proceeded to speak the jutsu's name in his mind before attempting to perform it. Water release. Water bullet technique. When a torrent of water spewed forth from his mouth, Naruto felt like jumping for joy. Hinata applauding him only added to his excitement. However, he still felt like he could do better, so he decided to wait on the water release jutsu until he had at least gotten the first step of training done for the water nature exercises. Deciding to try out one of the wind jutsu from his dad next, seeing as he had already completed the wind nature exercises, Naruto went for one of the C-rank jutsus. Looking it over, he memorized the jutsu's instructions and turned towards a tree before throwing a few shuriken at it and slapped his hands together before calling out, "Wind release, Gale Palm." In a matter of seconds, the shuriken were sped up and their power increased as they tore through the tree and even the one behind that before finally stopping and embedding themselves into the tree past that one. Upon seeing this, Naruto let out a proud whistle and turned to his girlfriend with a broad smile on his face. Well, how about that, huh? Giggling to herself, Hinata stood up and hugged her boyfriend close before giving him a quick peck on the lips. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Congratulations. Though it looks like we'll have to cut your little practice session short. We have company, Hinata said as she pointed behind him towards a figure approaching them. Turning, Naruto smiled as he saw one of his dear friends, a Mr. Rock Lee, approaching them with his usual grin on his face. So, while Hinata went to work sealing everything back up, Naruto greeted his friend. Hey Ali, How's it going? What brings you here? I was on my evening jog and happened to see my friends Naruto-kun and Hinata-san training together and figured I would come say hello. It's good to see you both stoking your flames of youth together, my good friends. Perhaps you wouldn't mind the company. I could use the workout. Lee questioned, quite eager for a little spar. Sadly, after a moment, Lee's pupils dilated and he began to quiver in place for a moment. Afterwards, he began to look around as if in a state of panic before his eyes settled on Hinata and he began to approach her with a look of hunger on his face. It was at this point that both Naruto and Hinata knew their dear friend had fallen under the effects of the pheromones that Hinata was releasing. Shit. Damn it, Lee, don't make me do this. Naruto cursed as he stepped in front of Hinata, fully prepared to beat down his good friend if he had to. And with the way it was looking, he would, indeed, have to fight Lee and knock him out if that's what it took to keep Hinata safe from a potential rape situation. When Lee saw Naruto blocking his way to what he believed to be his woman, the man with the bowl-cut hairdo snarled and took the beginning stance for the Goken Taijutsu style. Seconds afterward he charged and performed a high kick aimed to take Naruto's head from his shoulders. It was obvious that he was looking to end the showdown quickly so he could get to his prize sooner rather than later. Reaching up with one of his hands, Naruto grabbed Lee's leg and proceeded to fling his friend as far away from him as possible. Immediately afterwards, the blonde proceeded to dash after the green-clad Jonin and slammed a fist as hard as he could into the man's face, hoping to knock him out. Sadly, it wasn't to be as Lee took the blow and spun with it, swinging around with a fist of his own that nearly connected with Naruto's head if he hadn't seen it coming out of the corner of his eye. Jumping backwards away from his buddy, Naruto grumbled irritably to himself and shook his head. I hate having to get rough with my friends, but it looks like I can't keep holding back as much as I have been. Fine then, Lee, you've asked for it. In an instant, Naruto activated his golden nine tails chakra mode and instantly vanished from his spot before appearing in front of Lee once more with his fist embedded in his friend's stomach. It didn't take long for Lee to scream out in pain from the blow and to go flying into and through a few trees before finally coming to a stop after rolling along the ground some distance away. When Naruto went to check on his friend, he found Lee unconscious, but still in one piece, thankfully. Good thing I held back or I could have done some serious damage. As it was, I needed to knock you the hell out and that seemed like the fastest way to do it. I'm sorry, Lee, I really am. With a shrug of his shoulders, Naruto lifted his friend up and carried him back over to where Hinata was waiting. We should probably get him to the hospital before getting home. I don't want to run into another situation like this one tonight. Nodding her head in agreement, Hinata stood up and slipped away the two full storage scrolls into their bag before following after her now powered-down boyfriend as they made their way to the hospital. I really wish I knew how to control these pheromones, Naru-kun. I don't want to keep experiencing things like this. The brunette said sadly. I know, sweetheart. I know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry you have to go through this, but I promise you aren't going to have to go through this alone. I'm with you every step of the way. Naruto said as he smiled sweetly at his girlfriend and leaned over to give her a kiss on the cheek. I love you, honey. Smiling up at the love of her life, Hinata nodded happily and stopped to give her boyfriend another passionate kiss. I love you too, sweetie. Now let's get Lee to the hospital and get home. I do believe I promised to give you another night of fun, she said with a giggle at the end before she began to skip off. That you did, Naruto muttered to himself with a wry grin on his face as he proceeded to continue after her once more. Sakura couldn't help but sigh as she looked around the laboratory of the hideout Hinata done battle with the missing nin in. It was a dirty place with all kinds of fluids scattered about and it smelled absolutely horrible. Poor Kiba couldn't even enter the room because the chemicals were bothering his enhanced sense of smell that badly, so he was currently exploring other parts of the hideout in search of any and all clues they could find. Shino, too, had split off to go searching the rest of the hideout in search of anything that might prove useful in curing his teammate of what was ailing her. Shrugging that thought off, the Pinkett walked over to one of the lab tables and picked up a small beaker full of a really smelly blue liquid. Lifting it up to eye level, she couldn't help but voice her question out loud, what the hell is most of this stuff? Hinata's lucky she wasn't injected with something else judging by the looks, and the smell of things. Good lord. Setting the beaker of fluid down, she went about searching for folders and files for notes on any and all experimental drugs that the missing nin might have been working on. Whatever she found, she would look over later once she was back in Konoha. For now, it was vital to find everything and anything that they could and simply retrieve it for later perusal. As she worked, she couldn't help but wonder about the possibilities of what could have happened had Hinata been injected with anything else in the lab. She could have died, or any number of horrible things could have happened to her that she didn't want to imagine. As it was, what Hinata was currently going through was a stroke of luck. Sure, it wasn't a great situation, but it was the lesser of a great number of evils that could have been. Thinking about Hinata also brought images of what she had seen in the hospital room a few days back into her mind. Blushing fiercely, Sakura shook her head in an attempt to will the thoughts away. Bad Sakura. Now is not the time to be thinking about your teammates. Focus on the mission at hand. You can delve into fantasy land later when you're in the privacy of your own home. She scolded herself. Needless to say, it would be a long mission away from Konoha and she was not looking forward to it. Meanwhile, back in Konoha, 2 days had passed since the remaining members of Team 8 and Sakura Haruno had left on their important mission, and we now find our blonde hero standing in the Yamanaka Flowers shop having a chat with one Ino Yamanaka. I'm not entirely sure if Sakura-chan told you everything that's going on right now, Ino-chan, but I'm honestly kind of desperate here. Naruto started as he leaned against the counter with one arm resting on the counter. That drug's affecting Hinata bad, and I'm wondering if maybe there's some way to counter the effects of it with some of your family's plants in some way. Nodding along in understanding, Ino patted her friend's hand. I'm not sure if we have any plants strong enough to deal with what your girlfriend's going through, Naruto-kun. Seeing Naruto's disheartening expression, Ino gave his hand a gentle squeeze and smiled reassuringly at him. I didn't say it wasn't worth a try. We'll just have to try everything we can to help Hinata through this. What exactly are you having the most trouble with, Naruto-kun? Releasing a rather heavy sigh, Naruto ruffled his hair for a moment before glancing over his shoulder towards the door. Once he was sure that he hadn't been followed, he looked back into the blue-eyed woman's eyes. Spoke. This is embarrassing, but Hinata's been in a kind of heat ever since the drug fully kicked in. I don't want to go into details about our life, but if things keep up at the rate they've been going, we're going to wear each other out and she's still going to want more. Is there anything at all that you can do? At hearing this, Ino blushed quite a bit but nodded slowly as the request registered in her mind. Like I said, I don't know if anything I have will have any effect, but there are some plants here that, if mixed together into an herbal tea, can have a sort of calming effect on a person's drive. I don't know if any of them are strong enough, but I'd say they're worth a shot. The beautiful young woman explained as she began to flip through a registry of all of the plants they currently had in stock. Right now, until Sakura-chan gets back with that guy's notes, I'll try anything you can come up with, Ino-chan. I love Hinata-chan, I really do, but at the same time, I don't want to be so worn out that I can't keep her safe, you know. That, and I'm sore, like really sore. I need a break. Naruto exclaimed, much to Ino's ever-increasing embarrassment. Oh, okay. I get it already, Naruto-kun. Just please don't say any more. I don't need the mental images you're putting there. The Yamanaka heiress shouted out, desperately hoping to shut up the rambling man. Poor Ino had such a furious blush on her face at the moment, and she was trying very hard not to glance at her friend for fear of chancing a glance at his crotch. Damn, forehead got me thinking about it the other day, and now he's here talking about having constant with his girlfriend. It's only natural for a girl to be curious. This is ridiculous. Chuckling nervously, the blonde protagonist rubbed the back of his head and smiled awkwardly. Sorry Ino-chan. I guess I wasn't really thinking, huh? I'm just a bit exhausted is all. Anything you can do to help would be much appreciated. Nodding her head absent-mindedly, Ino muttered, I gotcha. Just gimme a sec. And walked off to mix together a few large bags of the herbal tea she mentioned to her friend earlier. When she came back about 20 minutes later with 2 bags full of the stuff, she placed them on the counter and looked into her friend's eyes. Okay Naruto-kun, I'm not sure if this tea will help any, but it's worth a shot. Don't expect any immediate results either. Give it a few days to see if there are any changes in her behavior. If you start to notice a decrease in her appetite, so to speak, then we can assume it's working. If not, just try to give it a bit more time as it could take up to 2 weeks for something like this to take effect, perhaps even longer than that given how much this drug is affecting her. Ino explained with a deep frown etched into her face. Nodding in understanding, Naruto grasped one of Ino's hands in both of his and shook it eagerly a couple of times. Thank you so much Ino-chan. You're a real lifesaver. How much do I owe you? He asked with an excited grin on his face. It was at this point that Ino donned a wicked little grin on her face. With a shrug of her shoulders, she sealed the bags away in a small sealing scroll before handing it over to Naruto and spoke her price. Consider this a favor Naruto-kun. But in exchange for this favor, I want a favor from you. Deal. Naruto quirked a brow and nodded his head slowly, cautiously. Oh okay. What exactly does this favor entail? He questioned, feeling a tad nervous about what she was about to ask of him in exchange for giving this herbal remedy to him. With an ever-widening grin on her face, Ino clasped her hands together in front of her and spoke her price. I want you to take me out on a date. Today you're going to be my boyfriend Naruto-kun and I'm going to get to experience what it feels like to be Hinata. And since you've already agreed to exchange a favor for a favor, you can't say no. Got it big boy. Smirking at him, she skipped around the counter and flipped the sign in the window to closed, before spinning around and smiling happily at her friend. I'm going to go get changed and then we can go have some fun together. I hope you're ready to show me a good time Naruto-kun. Before Naruto could even offer a word in protest, Ino had already rushed off to her room upstairs. As he lowered his hand, Naruto opened and closed his mouth repeatedly in shock at what had just happened. A date? But I have a girlfriend. I know what my mom's letter said, and I know that as the last Uzumaki male I could probably get away with having multiple wives, but, if I ever decided to do such a thing, I would talk with Hinata about it first. She has to approve of the woman first. This isn't right. The order is all wrong. Just what the hell is going on? When Ino returned a short while later clad in a beautiful violet-colored dress, Naruto couldn't help but admire how beautiful she looked. Ino didn't even have to put on any makeup or jewelry to look absolutely radiant to him at this moment, though the small studded earrings she currently wore in her ears and the light shade of lipstick she wore certainly accentuated her already stunning beauty. Before he could stop himself, he said aloud, Wow Ino-chan, you look absolutely beautiful. Blushing brightly, Ino stared down at her feet and shuffled them nervously as she folded her hands behind her back. Why you really think so Naruto-kun? I'm glad. Blushing himself, Naruto nodded slowly and extended his hand to her. If we're going to do this, I might as well be a gentleman about it. But before we do, before he could continue, Ino looked into his eyes and smiled a small, understanding smile at him. I understand Naruto-kun. You're with Hinata and you don't want to betray her. No kissing, but that doesn't mean you can't treat me as if I'm your girlfriend for the day. I expect you to treat me like I'm your princess today. Just one date okay. Sighing softly, the ninja clad in a white and light orange t-shirt and tan pants nodded his head slowly. Alright Ino-chan, one date. But I will be telling Hinata about it later, okay? I don't want to lie to her about this. A relationship must be built on trust after all. Smiling softly at this, Ino walked over and shook Naruto's hand before she wrapped her arms around his left arm and kissed his cheek. I understand Naruto-kun. I completely agree with you. You're a great person and a wonderful man. Hinata's very lucky to have you. Blushing worse than he did before, the spiky-haired young man couldn't help but rub the back of his head with his free hand in embarrassment. Thank you, Ino-chan. You're very sweet. Receiving a blush in response, Naruto moved his free hand to one of hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. So, where did you want to go first? I assume you have our date all planned out. Smiling at her boyfriend for the day, Ino nodded her head excitedly and quickly pulled Naruto out of the store with her. Yep. First, I want to go to your favorite restaurant for lunch. We can enjoy a good meal there and talk for a while over good food. Then afterwards, well, I'll tell you then. Got it, Mr. Uzumaki. Chuckling to himself, Naruto nodded his head in agreement and walked off with Ino Yamanaka, the two of them making their way towards Ramen Ichiraku. However, as the two of them walked off, neither of them noticed a certain Hyuga woman watching them from some distance behind them. As she watched her boyfriend and the Yamanaka woman walked off arm in arm with him, she couldn't help but clench her fists angrily. Just what does she think she's doing with my man? That skank. As Hinata proceeded to stalk the two of them, she didn't notice how her pheromones began to affect the couple nearby that was on a date of their own. After Hinata had disappeared down the road, the curly, brown-haired woman turned to her boyfriend with a fierce glare on her face and punched him hard in the face, knocking him to the ground. You man whore. You've been seeing another woman behind my back, haven't you? I can't believe you'd betray me like that. What the hell were you thinking? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Blinking in shock, the green-eyed man stared in horror at his girlfriend and tried to calm her down. What on earth are you talking about, sweetheart? I've been faithful to you for all these years. I've never so much as looked at another woman. You know that. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Don't you lie to me. I know you. I thought I could trust you, but you're nothing but a stupid, cheating jerk face. We're through, do you hear me? I'm filing for divorce. And with that being said, the woman stormed off, leaving her distraught, sobbing husband behind. Ramen Ichiraku. Ayame couldn't help but frown in disappointment as she saw her little brother figure walk in with a woman other than his girlfriend on what appeared to be a date. When they sat at the counter to order their food, the ramen waitress couldn't help but voice her thoughts. Naruto, what are you doing on a date with someone else other than Hinata-chan? Are you cheating on her already? Ino frowned at this and decided to speak up on behalf of her precious friend and love interest. Please don't be upset with him, Ayame-san. I'm the one that pressured him into this. Besides, it's only for one day. He's still with Hinata and very loyal to her. And, he's going to talk to Hinata after the date anyways, so you don't need to worry. Okay, now please calm down and let us order our food. Naruto decided to add his 2 cents as well, just to try and calm his dear sister figure's mind and nerves a bit more. The situation's just a bit complicated, Ayame. Don't be upset with Ino-chan either, okay? I promise nothing bad is going on and everything will be okay. Just trust me, okay? Releasing a heavy sigh, Ayame nodded slowly before whipping out a notepad and asking them what they wanted. After placing their orders, she nodded and went off to prepare their food. After she left, Ino turned to Naruto with a frown. I'm sorry for getting you in trouble with Ayame-san, Naruto-kun. I wasn't thinking. Shaking his head from left to right and back again a few times, Naruto placed his hand on hers and smiled at her. Don't be ridiculous. Everything's fine, Ino-chan. Now, why don't we get to talking? How have things been for you since the war? Have you been well? Giggling a bit, Ino nodded her head in thanks for the change of topic. You're sweet, Naru-kun. Leaning closer, she kissed him on the cheek again before leaning back and smiling at him. Things have been going really well actually, though it has been a bit boring. There haven't been as many missions due to how peaceful it's been. Sure, there's the occasional missing nin that needs to be dealt with and there's escort missions and the like still, but really it's been pretty dull. Still, I can't complain. But, what's the matter, Ino-chan? Naruto asked as he looked at her in concern. Butts were never good, at least from his experiences. Sighing heavily, Ino slumped over and looked at her hands that were currently resting in her lap. I'm lonely Naru-kun. I'm 18 years old and I'm without a boyfriend. The guy the first used to want is dead and now. Naruto winced and glanced away from her as he thought about the past and who she was talking about. When their food came moments later, he glanced into his bowl and spoke. Ino-chan, I'm sorry for killing the guy you and Sakura-chan loved. He didn't give me much of a choice, he really didn't. I tried to talk him out of the path he had chosen, but he had gone off the deep end and there was no changing him for the better. I did what I had to do and I don't regret my decision to end him as I did. Still, I know it must hurt to have lost him the way you did. Shaking her head in response to this, Ino reached over and placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder. Sakura and I got over Sasuke ages ago. Way before the Fourth War even began actually. Seeing him turn to her in shock, the platinum blonde smiled softly at him and nodded her head. Not only did he leave Konoha to join a traitor, but he turned into a monster that did such terrible things. Hell, he even joined the Akatsuki, a group that was out to capture and kill the Jinchuriki. That, he would have killed you given the chance Naru-kun. Frowning at this, Naruto reached up and absent-mindedly rubbed at his chest where his old Chidori wound was located. Hey, when Sasuke left Konoha years ago to join Orochimaru, he plunged a couple of his Chidoris through my chest. He nearly killed me then. I wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for Kurama. After a moment, Naruto broke apart his chopsticks, said his thanks for the meal, and dug into his meal in a quick, yet polite pace. When he had finished this first bowl, Naruto looked into his good friend's eyes and smiled softly. Sasuke tried to kill me a number of times after that, as well as other Konoha ninja as well, even Sakura-chan and Kakashi-sensei. The damn Tem had gone off the deep end in his never-ending quest for revenge. It didn't matter who he sought revenge against, he would find any flimsy reason he could just to keep on seeking revenge against anybody. I'm glad you and Sakura-chan got over him, Ino-chan. The blue-eyed blonde woman nodded her head in turn and, after finishing her own bowl, giggled a bit. Same here Naruto-kun. I still wonder why the heck the two of us even chased after Mr. Dark and Broody in the first place. He never paid any attention to any of the girls that sought after him and his affection. I think he might have been gay. PFF'd. Naruto began to choke on his second bowl of ramen as he tried to contain his laughter. Feeling a few hard slaps on his back, he swallowed and quickly thanked Ino for her help. Oh Kami, that's hilarious Ino-chan. I wonder if he was. Can you imagine him giving his virginity to Orochimaru in exchange for new jutsu? Wait. Don't imagine that. Disturbing mental images. Oh Kami. Naruto began scratching at his head in an attempt to erase the horrifying mental images he had just given himself. When he didn't succeed, he began to shake and quiver in his seat until Ino wrapped him in a tight hug and kissed his cheek. Thank you Ino-chan. Oh Kami, that was bad. Giggling to herself, Ino couldn't help but smile sweetly at him. You're welcome Naruto-kun. I'm glad I could make you laugh. But really, enough talking about Sasuke, okay. That's over and done with, and I think we're all better off with him gone. Sakura's in agreement with me and I think the others would be as well. After saying this, the both of them motioned for seconds before they turned back to face one another. Besides, there's another guy I'm interested in now, even though he doesn't know I'm interested in him just yet. Blinking at this, Naruto couldn't help but find himself feeling rather curious about who Ino might be talking about. Oh really? Who might this lucky guy be? Whoever it is really lucky to have earned your affections Ino-chan. You're a wonderful woman and I think this guy would be a fool to turn you down, you know. I mean, you're beautiful, smart, kind, you're an amazing person. Naruto admitted with a deep blush painting his cheeks. Blushing quite badly herself, Ino found herself nodding slowly before she began fidgeting a bit. I I'd rather not say just yet, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry. I'll tell you later though, I promise. For now, let's just enjoy our food and then be on our way, okay? Receiving a nod in response, the two of them resumed their meal and proceeded to continue on with some rather simple small talk. Meanwhile, the entire time they had been talking, Hinata had been outside the stand, keeping herself hidden from the duo. She had to admit to herself, albeit slightly reluctantly, that the talk about Sasuke being gay had been pretty amusing and she found herself giggling quietly in response to that. However, just remembering Naruto's state after the battle with Sasuke at the Valley of the End had angered Hinata to the point she had to take long, deep breaths in an effort to calm herself down so she wouldn't be discovered by the two. However, right now she was feeling such an overwhelming feeling of jealousy towards Ino that she couldn't help but grind her teeth just slightly. Oh Naruto-kun, how can you be so dense sometimes? Ino is talking about you. She's fallen in love with you, you dummy. I love you so much, but sometimes I wonder about you, my silly Naru-kun. She thought to herself as she continued to listen in on their conversation. After a moment, Hinata, Ayame, and the couple of the day began to hear a loud commotion coming from a short distance away from the ramen stand. As the three inside the stand exited the restaurant to see what was going on, Hinata proceeded to hide herself further in the shadows while also trying to keep an eye on what was taking place away from them. I saw you making eyes at that woman just a moment ago. She's not even that attractive, you stupid asshole. If you are that hungry for, why didn't you just tell me? Why do you need to go looking for it elsewhere? A woman was shouting at her younger boyfriend. What the hell are you talking about? All I did was offer her a polite smile and a good day. It was a polite greeting. You know I love you, honey. We've been dating for almost 2 years now. Why would I risk screwing that up now? The man replied, honestly confused about what had gotten into his girlfriend. She had never acted like this before and it was starting to scare him. Don't you go feeding me that bullshit. You've been sleeping around behind my back because I haven't been giving you any lately, haven't you? You're such a man. Go on, go to that girl and ask her out on a date because you and I are through, do you hear me? I don't want to see you ever again. The woman shouted as she ran off with tears in her eyes. At this, the man collapsed to his knees in stunned horror and simply began to stare blankly ahead, unable to quite comprehend what had just happened. After a brief moment, tears began to stream down his face and he pulled out a small box from an inner pocket of his jacket and opened it up. And I was going to ask her to marry me today, I. Oh, that poor man. I feel so sorry for him. Ino said as she watched the man break down into tears as the box fell from his hands. I don't think he was going to do anything. I think he was telling the truth. What about you, Naruto-kun? Frowning at this, Naruto walked over to the man and picked up the small box before placing it gently into the man's hands. Helping him to his feet, Naruto brushed some imaginary dirt off the man's clothes and smiled kindly at him. If you were really going to ask her to marry you, sir, I suggest you chase after her and try to reason with her. Tell her how much you love her and don't you dare let her get away. I can tell your feelings for her run deep, so do your best. Got it. Nodding at this, the man did his best to wipe the tears out of his eyes before quickly thanking the hero of Konoha and rushed off to hunt down his girlfriend and try to talk some sense into her. Hopefully she'll have calmed down by the time he found her. Seeing this, Ino walked over, wrapped her arms around Naruto's left arm and rested her head on his shoulder. You're such a sweetheart, Naruto-kun. That was a good thing you did. I'm proud of you, she said with a soft-hearted smile on her face. Smiling down at her, Naruto nodded slowly and turned with her to go and pay for their meal. I couldn't bear to see their relationship end just because of a terrible misunderstanding like that. Besides, that kind of behavior just wasn't natural. It was almost like something was affecting her, but I'm not sure what it could be. I just hope she'll have calmed down by the time he finds her. I could tell he really loves her. Smiling to herself, Ino nodded her head slowly and looked up into her good friend's face as she reached up and gently began to stroke his whiskers. When he began to purr, she giggled a bit and kissed his cheek again. I really love you, Naruto-kun. I wish I could have gotten to you first, I really do. Meanwhile, outside of the restaurant, Hinata couldn't help but stare at where the couple had been arguing in shock. Oh dear, is my jealousy affecting the pheromones in some way? Are couples going to keep arguing like this as long as I'm like this? She couldn't help but wonder to herself. As she glanced back inside to see what Ino and her boyfriend were up to, Hinata's jealousy spiked again and she couldn't help but snarl inwardly in rage. That skank just can't keep her hands to herself, can she? Wait, Hinata, jealousy. Try to keep it in check. Nope. Easier said than done. She's petting his whiskers. Those are mine to play with, damn it. The Crown Ice Cream Shop. We now find our dear couple for the day seated outside the Crown Ice Cream Shop eating ice cream. Naruto was enjoying a double scoop helping of butterscotch ice cream while Ino had chosen to get a combination of a scoop of mint chocolate chip and a scoop of vanilla. So far they had been simply enjoying the other's company while enjoying their ice cream, but they couldn't help but notice that things were odd between the other couples in the ice cream parlor. For instance, two of them had already started to argue while a brother-sister pair had begun to break down into tears together as they talked about their failed love lives and how they were never going to find their one, true loves. They even went on to say that if things continued on as they were, they might just kill themselves, which was honestly kind of frightening for the blonde couple. After taking some time to think about the odd behavior they had seen today, Naruto looked into Ino's eyes and frowned. Ino-chan, I think I know what's going on, but you're not going to like it. He stated, already feeling terrible about what he felt to be a certainty already. If he was right, he was worried about the possible repercussions he would be facing later after this date was over. Ino frowned and nodded her head, already understanding where he was going with this. I know what you're thinking, Naruto-kun. I think Hinata's been spying on our date. If I had to guess, I'd say she's feeling jealous and that's affecting the pheromones she's releasing in a really negative way. These poor people. Nodding his head, Naruto was about to say something in response, but then a thought popped into his head. Deciding to voice it aloud, he tilted his head just slightly and looked Ino hard in the eyes. How come you haven't been affected by the pheromones then, Ino-chan? If Hinata-Hime's been following us all day, shouldn't they have affected you as well? Blinking a few times, Ino couldn't help but realize the truth in Naruto's words. He was right, she should have been feeling the full effects of Hinata's pheromones as well. In fact, she should have already acted out in some way and verbally lashed out at Naruto just like the other women had to their men. After taking some time to think on a possible answer to this puzzle, Ino smiled to herself and nodded her head, quite certain of the answer she was about to give. Looking back up into her boyfriend for the day's eyes, Ino reached over and placed her hand gently atop his. Naruto, I think I'm unaffected because I have complete trust in you. I know you would never do anything to hurt me. In fact, I feel safer than I ever have before when I'm with you. It's quite honestly an amazing feeling. I just wish I could describe it properly. It feels that good when I'm with you. I think that's probably the reason I'm unaffected right now. Or at least, that's my best guess. She explained, feeling quite confident that her answer was the right one. If it wasn't, she didn't even care. Ino was just that happy to be in Naruto's care right now. Blushing profusely at this, Naruto chuckled a bit and nodded his head. Well, I suppose that's as good an answer as any. Either way, I'm really glad you're alright, Ino-chan. What do you say we finish our cones and continue on our way? I know Hina-chan's going to be really upset with me by the time this is over, but I'll explain everything to her once this is over. I just hope she understands and doesn't choose to try and take out her frustrations on you. You haven't really done anything wrong after all. You've actually been really good company today, Ino-chan. The platinum blonde smiled happily and nodded excitedly. I'm really glad you think so, Naruto-kun. And that sounds great, Naru-kun. But, are you sure you want to continue the date? I mean, now that we know Hinata's been following us, I don't want to make things worse for you. If it's too much, we can end the date now and you can be on your way. Despite saying this, Ino looked heartbroken and couldn't help but place a hand over her heart and squeeze her dress in that place. She could feel tears brimming at her eyes from a mixture of things. The thought of her love getting in trouble with his girlfriend and the thought of this date ending early being the most prominent reasons. Sighing softly, Naruto reached over and lightly flicked Ino in the forehead. Calm down, Ino-chan. We'll finish this date. I said I'd go on a date with you today, and you know I keep my promises. Besides, I'll talk to Hinata later and sort everything out. You don't need to worry about my relationship with Hinata-chan, I promise. Now, here, Naruto took a moment to finish off his ice cream cone before smiling broadly at his date. What was the next thing you had in mind for the day? Giggling to herself, Ino finished off her ice cream cone as well and walked around the table to hug Naruto Uzumaki tightly, being extra sure to press her S against him. When she saw him blushing, the Yamanaka heiress smirked in victory before telling him what she had in mind. Well, I was planning to go dancing with you, but considering that we have Hinata following us, I don't think that's a good idea. There's no telling what could happen at the nightclub I had planned to take us to with her pheromones going wild like they are. Frowning at this, Naruto gently squeezed her hand and gave her a gentle hug. Is there anything else you would like to do, Ino-chan? Today is all about you after all. So long as you're happy, that's all that matters to me right now. He said seriously. Blushing in response, Ino nodded slowly and proceeded to tell him what she had in mind. Well, how about an evening stroll through the park? I'd like to watch the setting sun with you and even stargaze for a while. If that's alright with you, Naruto-kun. I promise that afterwards I'll tell you the answer to the question you asked earlier too. The beautiful violet-clad woman said. Smiling at her, Naruto nodded and proceeded to stand up from his chair, taking Ino's hand in his. Afterwards, he left the ice cream parlor with her and they began their trek towards the Konoha Park. At the park, the blonde couple for the day was currently sitting on a bench together watching the setting sun, simply relishing in the company of one another as they had been doing all day. They were wearing content smiles on their faces, and Naruto really had to admit to himself that Ino made for really excellent company. Before he could stop himself, he found himself speaking his mind once again. Ino-chan, what is it, Naruto-kun? Are you okay? Ino asked as she looked towards him with a curious gaze. She currently had a light blush on her face as the two of them were holding hands. Truth be told, her heart was racing just as it had been all day. Smiling at the Yamanaka woman, Naruto couldn't help but admit to himself that she was a true beauty in every sense of the word. I think that the man you've fallen for is a truly lucky person. You're a really beautiful woman and I have to admit I'm kind of envious. I've really enjoyed your company today. Whoever he is, I just hope that he treats you right. If he ever hurts you, I want you to tell me, okay? I'll be sure to pummel the crap out of him for making you cry. Hearing this, Ino couldn't help but start giggling. Leaning in, she kissed Naruto's nose and wrapped her arms around him. Hugging herself to him tightly, she began to cry and sob silently. You beautiful blonde dummy, she said quietly. Blinking in shock from this, Naruto couldn't help the question that passed his lips. Why are you calling me a dummy, Ino-chan? Ino clung to him tighter and couldn't help but cry a bit harder. After a moment, she pulled back just enough so she could look up into Naruto's eyes and began to wipe at her eyes to try and clear away her tears. It's you, sweetheart. I'm in love with you, Naruto-kun. There's never going to be anyone else for me. But you're in love with Hinata. There's no room in your heart for me and it hurts. It hurts so much. I want to be with you too. Ino admitted as tears just continued to pour down her cheeks. Staring at Ino with mouth agape, Naruto was having the hardest time forming any coherent thoughts. His facial expression was one of shock and he couldn't help but blush at the thought of this lovely woman being in love with him of all people. When he could finally think again, he pulled Ino up against him and began using one of his fingers to wipe away her tears. Ino-chan, please stop crying. Please. I don't want to see you cry anymore, okay? You're somebody dear to me. Just let me talk to Hinata, alright? I didn't know, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, but allow me to talk to Hinata about this. I won't do anything behind her back or without her consent. But if she agrees to share me with you, then I'll be more than happy to give you a chance. Okay, Ino-chan. Nodding her head just slightly, Ino held onto Naruto tightly and found herself smiling. Naruto wasn't rejecting her. With a grin on her face, she leaned up and kissed his cheek again. You're a real sweetheart, Naruto-kun. But there's something else I need to tell you. Blinking a few times, Naruto couldn't help but wonder what else she had to reveal to him. She had already dropped one huge bombshell on him when she admitted to being in love with him. What else could she possibly say that might top such a thing? Okay. What's up, Ino-chan? Smiling awkwardly at this point, Ino glanced sideways and rubbed at the back of her head. I really shouldn't be saying this without her permission, but I don't think Forehead would ever come out and say it on her own. Sighing heavily, she continued rubbing at her head in the same nervous gesture for a moment before looking into her love's eyes. Sakura's in love with you too and has been for even longer than I have been. But she's too afraid of you rejecting her that she won't say anything to you. So, when you talk to Hinata about my confession, you might want to talk about the possibility of sharing with Sakura as well. She's my best friend and I hate seeing her so lonely. Once again, Naruto's face became one of shock and all thought processes ceased for a good, long while. When his brain finally rebooted about 3 minutes later, the only thing he could think of was, Sakura-chan's in love with me too. When the hell did this happen? I thought she was lying when she confessed to me before. Seeing that Naruto was stuck in a state of shock, Ino worried that she had broken him. Reaching up, she began to gently pet the whiskers on his right cheek until he finally calmed down and came back into the land of the living. Naruto-kun, are you okay, sweetheart? Nodding slowly as a low purr sounded from him from Ino's ministrations on his cheek, Naruto breathed out a small sigh of air as he began to calm down. After a moment, he began to speak. I'm just shocked, Ino-chan. I didn't think either of you would fall for somebody like me. I mean, I'm nothing special. Frowning at this, Ino bonked him atop the head and began to scold him. Don't you go saying something like that, Naruto-kun. You're an amazing, wonderful human being. You've saved all of our lives not just once, but numerous times. You're also so kind and sweet, you're funny, and you're just an all-around good person. I could list so many things about you that I love to death, but I think you get the picture. There's nobody else that even comes close to how great a guy you are. Well, at least that's how I feel. Ino proclaimed before blushing badly when she realized just how much she had been rambling. Blushing furiously at the praise, Naruto could only nod slowly before hugging Ino close once again and thanking her quietly. Thank you, Ino-chan. I appreciate that. How about we get you home now and I'll head home with Hinata so I can get to talking to her. Is that okay? Or did you want to stay and stargaze some more? Ino smiled and shook her head. No, I should get home. I'm probably in a bit of trouble as it is for closing the shop so early today. I don't care though, I had a wonderful day with my big hunk of a man. The blonde woman giggled a bit before placing a hand on Naruto's chest and kissing his whiskered cheek once again. So let's get me home and you can go talk to your pretty girlfriend, mister. Nodding in agreement, Naruto stood up and lifted Ino into his arms in a bridal carry, a large grin on his face. Then hold on tight, Ino-chan, we're traveling in style. Laughing a bit as Ino giggled along, Naruto hopped off, carrying Ino on his way to the Yamanaka flowers shop. Later, Naruto and Hinata's home. Once Naruto walked through the door, he saw his beautiful blue-haired girlfriend waiting for him in the living room with a deep frown on her face. With a heavy sigh, the blonde hero closed the door behind him, locked it, and then walked over to sit beside her. Hi sweetheart. I know you're upset with me, but if you'll let me speak, I would like to talk with you about the events of the day. Okay. Hinata nodded slowly before looking her boyfriend in the eyes. Why were you on a date with Ino-san? Are you already bored of me, Naruto-kun? I thought you loved me. Seeing his girlfriend about to break into tears, the blue-eyed blonde sighed and hugged her close. Placing a kiss atop her head, Naruto sighed again and began to speak. I went to Ino earlier today to speak with her about the possibility of using some plants to help with your affliction, sweetheart. After she put together an herbal tea mix for us to try, she asked me for a favor in exchange for a favor. In other words, she asked for one date in exchange for trying to help you. Okay. Nodding slowly, Hinata looked into her boyfriend's eyes and wiped at her eyes to try and remove the tears that were threatening to spill down her cheeks. She was all over you today though. How do you explain that? Sighing heavily once more, Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I can't. My condition was no kissing on the lips, but otherwise I promised to give her the full date experience. After some time, we realized you were following us because of the way your pheromones were affecting the people around us. At least now we know how jealousy affects your pheromones, and it sure isn't pretty. Naruto chuckled a bit at this before hugging his girlfriend just a bit closer. Blushing in embarrassment, Hinata looked down at her hands and began to poke her index fingers together. I didn't mean to cause so many problems for those couples. I couldn't help it. I was so jealous, Naruto-kun. I still am. Kissing his girlfriend atop the head again, he pulled his girlfriend flush against him and chuckled softly. It's okay, honey. It really is. I don't blame you for getting jealous. I probably would be as well. But I do have to talk to you about something. Taking a deep breath in and then letting it out slowly, Naruto looked into his sweetie's eyes and began to speak. Hinata-chan, you know I'm the last male member of the Uzumaki clan, right? There's a chance I could be inducted into the CRA, even though we've been lucky so far that hasn't been the case thus far. Shrugging slightly, he continued on. The point I'm trying to make is this. I might need to take on multiple wives depending on how things go, and I don't want to do that if you aren't comfortable with it. I'm willing to fight it if you aren't comfortable with the idea of sharing me. But, I found out earlier that both Ino-chan and Sakura-chan are in love with me. I promised Ino-chan that I would talk with you about this because I'm not going to keep secrets from you, nor am I going to go behind your back and do anything without your permission. I love you far too much to betray your trust. Hinata smiled at her boyfriend and held him close before kissing his lips passionately. I love you, Naruto-kun. I'm really glad you're being so considerate of my feelings. I'll admit that I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea of sharing you, but at the same time, blushing fiercely at this point, Hinata began to poke her fingers together again and started to giggle perversely. The idea of having some threesomes and maybe even a foursome is so kinky that I can't help but want to try it out. And, I know how it feels to go without the one you love. I missed you for years and I wasn't sure if I'd ever get to be with you. Besides, you fawned over Sakura-san for years and I never thought you'd notice me. So, releasing a heavy sigh of her own, Hinata looked into her boyfriend's eyes and kissed him on the lips once again. Sweetheart, it's okay for you to date them. The three of us love you dearly and I can't find it in my heart to deny them your love. So if you're okay with sharing your love with all three of us, then I'll learn to share as well. Hinata stated determinedly. Holding his girlfriend close, Naruto smiled softly at her and kissed her passionately. When they pulled apart, he couldn't help but feel so much closer to her than he ever had before. What did I ever do to deserve such a wonderful woman, Hina-chan? Giggling to herself, Hinata shook her head before kissing him again. You were just yourself, Naru-kun. You didn't have to do a thing to earn my love. Now, what do you say we get to bed? We can try that herbal tea later. I'm feeling pretty tired right now after today's events. She admitted as she stretched her arms above her head and yawned. Chuckling a bit, Naruto nodded and rose from the couch. I know the feeling. I'm honestly feeling pretty beat myself. Let's get to bed and get some rest. Helping his girlfriend up off the couch, Naruto kissed her once more and smiled sweetly at her once more. I love you so much, sweetheart. I really do. Smiling happily at him, Hinata kissed him back and walked with him up the stairs. And I love you, my handsome prince. Now let's get to bed.